Everything begins in a pet shop, where a young woman named So-yin works. She absolutely loves cats and takes care of them with genuine affection. That day, she's grooming a sweet little cat named Baidan. After giving her a nice bath, she even puts a tiny bow tie on her before handing her back to her owner, Seung-kyung, who just returned from shopping. While Seung-kyung is paying, So-yin holds the cat in her arms, playing with her a little. But suddenly, she feels something strange. It's like someone's touching the shop window. When she looks outside, there's no one there. Trying to stay calm, she pretends everything's fine, but deep down, she knows something weird just happened. A little later, when So-yin steps outside to take out the trash, she spots Seung-kyung about to get into her car, holding Baidan. Next to them, there's a small girl gently petting the cat. But when So-yin blinks and looks again, the girl is gone, vanished like she was never there. Confused, So-yin wonders if she imagined it, or if there really was someone standing there. Later that day, Seung-kyung arrives at her apartment building and steps into the elevator. Suddenly, Baidan starts acting up, her fur bristling, eyes fixed on one corner as if she's seeing something invisible. The woman tries to calm her down and holds her tightly, but the cat won't stop hissing and struggling. When the elevator stops on the 11th floor and the doors slide open, Seung-kyung's husband is standing there, staring in shock. His wife is lying on the floor, dead, while Baidan sits quietly beside her, completely unharmed. That same afternoon, So-yin meets with her therapist. She talks about how she's been trying to overcome her fears, though she still struggles with small, enclosed spaces, especially elevators. Her claustrophobia comes from a childhood trauma when she nearly suffocated during a house fire. Her therapist encourages her to face her fears if she truly wants to move past them. As So-yin leaves the clinic, she notices a police car passing by. Curious, she follows it, and it leads her straight to Seung-kyung's building. There, she sees an officer holding Baidan in his arms. When she asks what happened, the officer, Jun Si-hyuk, explains that Seung-kyung died just a few minutes ago, and they believe she suffered a heart attack inside the elevator. When So-yin realizes the cat is now all alone, she decides to take Baidan back to the pet shop for the time being. Turns out, So-yin and Jun Si-hyuk actually went to the same high school, and back then, she had a crush on him. Before leaving, she gives him her number in case Seung-kyung's husband wants to reclaim the cat. At the shop, her manager first tells her to leave Baidan with the other cats, but then changes his mind, saying they can't take responsibility for it. He orders her to take the cat home instead. So-yin places Baidan inside her carrier, but right then, through the glass door, she sees a little girl staring at her with a terrified expression. When she blinks, the girl is gone. Later that night, So-yin walks home with Baidan in her arms. She feels like someone's following her and starts walking faster, unaware that several stray cats are watching her from the shadows. When she gets home, she shows the apartment to her new roommate and explains that none of the rooms have doors because she can't stand closed spaces. Just then, she gets a call from her friend Bo-hee, who tells her she's planning to adopt a cat. So-yin doesn't believe her, since Bo-hee had already abandoned one not long after adopting it, but Bo-hee insists this time will be different and asks So-yin to come with her to the shelter. Before hanging up, So-yin mentions that she saw Jun Si-hyuk earlier and found out he's now a cop, something Bo-hee clearly doesn't like since he's her ex-boyfriend. Later, So-yin plays with Baidan using a toy wand with a string and a small ball. Everything seems peaceful until suddenly, the cat hides under the bed. When So-yin bends down to look, she spots a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her. And then, the same little girl she saw before reaches out toward her, face frozen in terror. So-yin screams in horror. The next day, So-yin tells her therapist everything that happened. The woman believes those visions are nothing more than memories and fears resurfacing from the trauma she suffered as a child. Even so, she assures So-yin that she's making progress and that she'll eventually recover. Later, So-yin goes with her friend Bo-hee to the animal shelter. On the way, she finds out that Bo-hee only wants a cat to look more attractive and to find a boyfriend, which disappoints her deeply. As they walk toward the shelter, They pass a wall covered in missing pet posters, something that leaves So-Yin visibly thoughtful. Inside, an employee named Lee greets them and leads them to the room where the cats up for adoption are kept. Seeing so many sad animals locked in cages makes So-Yin feel awful, especially when she notices one of them looks sick. While Bo-hee chooses her new cat, Lee heads to the cremation room to burn the bodies of the animals that were recently put down. When he returns, Bo-hee has already picked her pet, but So-Yin points out that one of the cats has just died inside its cage. She stares at it sadly while Lee and Bo-hee leave to finish the adoption paperwork. Suddenly, the door to the room shuts by itself. So-Yin tries to open it, but realizes she's trapped. Panic sets in. The cats start to freak out, meowing loudly as their cages shake violently. Terrified, So-Yin falls to her knees and begins to vomit hairballs. Thankfully, Bo-hee returns just in time and helps her get out. Meanwhile, the police are reviewing the elevator footage from Soon-kyung's death. In the video, the woman appears to be attacked by something invisible, a presence only she could see. Some officers believe it was a seizure or a panic attack, but Jun Seok isn't so sure. That afternoon, at the pet shop, So-Yin is cleaning the shelves when she notices the cats behaving strangely again. She feels that same eerie presence around her. A faint noise comes from the other side of the door, and when she opens it, she is greeted by a horrifying sight. The floor is covered with the bodies of dead cats. Suddenly, a pale hand reaches out from between them and grabs her by the ankle. So-Yin screams and runs out of the store in absolute terror. Later, Jun Seok arrives and helps her check the storage room, but everything looks perfectly normal. Afterward, he drives her home to make sure she gets back safely. He tells her that Soon-kyung's husband still isn't ready to take care of Baidan. So-Yin tells him it's fine, that she'll keep looking after the cat for now. That night, she tries to sleep, but the nightmares won't let her rest. In one of them, she hears noises coming from the kitchen and gets up to check. To her horror, she sees her father standing there, cooking soup, and the main ingredient is Baidan. She wakes up screaming, relieved to realize it was only a dream. The cat is still peacefully asleep beside her. But when she lifts the blanket, she sees the ghost of the little girl with cat-like eyes staring at her. Panicking, she runs to the kitchen to take her pills, convinced she's hallucinating. The next day, So-Yin goes to the hospital to pay for her father's treatment. He's been institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, and although she doesn't want to see him, she continues covering the medical costs. Later, she visits Bo-hee and notices her friend isn't getting along with her new cat. She won't leave it alone for a second, which is clearly making the animal uncomfortable. While they're at the apartment, Bo-hee opens the closet to look for the cat, but suddenly the lights start flickering and the door slams shut. A loud scream breaks the silence. So-Yin rushes over, opens the door, and finds the light bulb burned out. When she looks through the clothes, she comes face to face with the same ghostly figure that's been haunting her, the little girl with cat eyes. The apparition vanishes instantly, but when So-Yin turns around, she finds Bo-hee's lifeless body lying on the floor. So-Yin calls an ambulance, and they rush Bo-hee to the hospital. The doctors try to revive her, but it's no use. She doesn't respond. They decide to transfer the body to the morgue, located on the top floor of the building, and So-Yin insists on going with her. Despite her claustrophobia, So-Yin steps into the elevator with the nurses and her friend's body, trying to stay calm. Suddenly, she notices bloodstains on the sheet covering Bo-hee. Terrified, she leans in for a closer look. And in that instant, Bo-hee's eyes snap open, and she grabs So-Yin's arm tightly. So-Yin screams in horror, but when the nurses calm her down, she realizes it was only a hallucination brought on by the shock. That night, back at home, she tries to distract herself by making dinner, but she accidentally cuts her finger while chopping chicken. She sits on the couch, pressing a piece of paper to the wound to stop the bleeding. Baidan walks over and begins licking the drops of blood that fell on the couch. The cat's behavior unsettles her, and she decides it's time to return her to her owner. So-Yin takes Baidan to the building where Soon-kyung used to live. She climbs the stairs to the 11th floor and hears footsteps behind her. Panic hits and she runs toward Mr. Sungmin's door, ringing the bell desperately. Just when she feels the ghost's presence closing in, the man opens the door and lets her inside. Sungmin offers her money to keep the cat, telling her he never wants to see it again. He confesses that ever since Baidan arrived, his family hasn't known peace, and that his wife claimed to see the spirit of a young girl haunting their apartment. In that moment, So Yin realizes that the entity tormenting her is somehow connected to the cat. Fearing she'll end up like her friend and Sun Kyung, she decides to abandon Baidan. That night, she takes the carrier to a nearby park, opens the door, and lets the cat go. On her way back, she finds an old woman wandering aimlessly, lost and confused. Feeling sorry for her, So Yin walks the woman to the police station so the officers can help her get home safely. One of them praises So Yin for her kindness, saying most people would have just ignored the woman. Before she leaves, Jun Seok shows up and offers to walk her home. On the way, So Yin tells him that she left Baidan in the park because something about her didn't feel right. She also confesses that she suspects the cats are somehow connected to the deaths of Bo-hee and Sun Kyung, since both of them had adopted one right before dying. Intrigued, Jun Seok decides to investigate and calls the shelter where Bo-hee's cat, Dimwit, was taken, asking them to keep it alive till he can examine it. But the employee, Lee, ignores his warning. That night, Lee prepares a lethal injection to euthanize the cat. Just as he's about to do it, the shelter dogs start barking wildly, but he pays them no attention. He injects the cat, takes a picture of the body, and places it inside the cremation oven. Right before he turns on the fire, the oven door swings open by itself. Lee leans down to look inside but sees nothing. Then he feels a presence behind him. When he turns around, two pale arms shoot out from the oven, grabbing him by the neck and pulling him in. The door slams shut and Lee is burned alive. That same night, So Yin is at home, sketching the face of the little girl she's been seeing in her visions. Suddenly, she hears Baidan meowing outside. She gets up and looks through the peephole, and sees the ghostly girl on the other side of the door, slowly approaching with those eerie, cat-like eyes. So Yin steps back in terror, but when she looks again, the figure is gone. Just then, her phone rings. It's Jun Seok asking her to come with him to the animal shelter. The next morning, a police officer picks So Yin up and drives her there. On the way, she explains that Sun Kyung claimed to have seen the ghost of a young girl in her home before she died. And the most disturbing part is that ever since she adopted Baidan, So Yin has been seeing the same spirit too. When they arrive at the shelter, So Yin and Jun Seok start looking for Lee, but he's nowhere to be found. Instead, they discover a wall completely covered with hundreds of photos of euthanized cats, and among them, the picture of Bo-hee's cat, Dimwit. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the cremation chamber. They rush to open it, and what they see leaves them horrified. Lee's burned remains inside. They immediately inform the other workers about what happened. While going through the shelter's records, they discover that Dimwit had been rescued from Sangwoo Park, the same place where Sun Kyung found Baidan a year earlier. One of the employees explains that although the cats in the park looked healthy, some neighbors complained, so 8 of them were captured and sent to the shelter last month. As they review the recent deaths, So Yin notices a chilling pattern. Every victim died in an enclosed space, which only worsens her fear of small, confined areas. Determined to keep investigating, she heads to the municipal shelter to check the complaint files. There, she learns that all the reports came from the Dongga condominium, right next to Sangwoo Park. An employee explains that the residents wanted to get rid of the cats because they believed the animals were lowering the property value. They trapped them and locked them in a room for 2 weeks. When the rescue team finally arrived, most of them were already dead, and only a few survived after the doors were opened. Later that night, So Yin receives an urgent call from her boss, Han Wei, asking her to come to the pet shop immediately. But as soon as she gets there, something feels wrong. Han Wei sees Baidan outside the store and angrily opens the door to chase her away. The cat runs inside, and furious, he locks her in a carrier and drags it into the storage room. When Baidan starts meowing non-stop, Hanwei loses his patience and kicks the cage, but the cat won't stop crying, so he grabs a metal bar and starts hitting the carrier repeatedly. Suddenly, the storage door slams shut by itself. Hanwei freezes as a faint child's voice whispers in his ear. He turns around, but no one is there. Out of nowhere, the ghost of the little girl with cat-like eyes appears behind him. She jumps on his back and claws him violently while he tries to open the door to escape. Moments later, So-yin arrives at the store and calls for her boss, but there's no answer. That's when she notices a pool of blood seeping out from under the storage door. She opens it and finds Hanwei's lifeless body on the floor. Terrified, she runs outside just as Jun Seok pulls up. Seeing her trembling in fear, he goes inside to check. Meanwhile, Baidan slowly approaches So-yin as if trying to comfort her. Jun Seok confirms the man's death and promises to investigate what's really happening. Before leaving, So-yin, convinced she's next, confesses her feelings for him, afraid it might be the last time they see each other alive. That night, So-yin goes to the building where the dead cats were found. As she walks through the halls, she's startled to see the same elderly woman she met days earlier wandering around again. The woman approaches her and, with a trembling voice, asks if she's seen her granddaughter, Hee-jin, walking nearby. So-yin quickly realizes the woman has Alzheimer's. Concerned for her safety, she follows her back home to the Donga condominium, the same place mentioned in the report. Inside the apartment, the old woman gently asks So-yin to call her granddaughter, saying she's in her room. But when So-yin opens the door, she freezes in shock. The room is filled with photos of the same ghostly little girl who's been haunting her all this time. Terrified, she asks what happened to Hee-jin, but the old woman doesn't respond. Instead, she quietly wraps a scarf around So-yin's neck. At that moment, Hee-jin's father appears. The moment he sees So-yin, he becomes furious and throws her out of the house. Then he starts shouting at his mother, and his rage quickly turns violent. As he beats the old woman, she cries through her tears, begging him to let her granddaughter rest in peace. But the man, completely out of control, locks his mother in her room. When he realizes that So-yin witnessed everything, he runs after her. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by dozens of cat cries echoing through the building. A horde of furious cats emerges and attacks the man. He tries to fight them off, but it is useless. Amid the chaos, So-yin takes the chance to run, but in the middle of the hallway, she comes face to face with Baidan. Without knowing why, she follows the cat down a dark corridor until she reaches a small, dimly lit room, the same one where the dead cats were found. Using her phone's flashlight, she starts looking around, but the door suddenly slams shut behind her, trapping her inside. Soon, she realizes she is surrounded by dozens of cats staring at her from every corner. Panic takes over, but Baidan tries to protect her, guiding her toward a large boiler where she can hide. So-yin climbs up but loses her balance and falls hard to the floor. As she gets up, she shines her light and gasps in horror when she sees more cat corpses scattered around. Beside her, she finds a small children's lunchbox. Then she hears a whisper behind her. Slowly, Hee-jin crawls out of the shadows and into the light. The ghostly girl moves closer, ready to attack, but stops when she sees the scarf wrapped around So-yin's neck, the same one her grandmother had wear upon for her when she was alive. Hee-jin begins to cry, and at that moment, the truth is finally revealed. When she was alive, Hee-jin adored the neighborhood cats, especially Baidan. But one of the neighbors complained that the animals were dirtying the place, so she ordered the landlord to get rid of them. No one knew that the little girl was hiding in the basement, listening to everything. In a desperate attempt to save her beloved cats, Hee-jin hid inside the boiler with several of them. The neighbors sealed the doors, unaware that she was still inside. She tried to escape but fell down the stairs and hit her head, losing consciousness. She was never found after that. Realizing the tragedy, So-yin bursts into tears. She kneels beside the ghostly child, wraps the scarf gently around her neck, and hugs her tightly, trying to comfort her tormented spirit. She whispers that it is okay now, that she can finally rest, and that she is not alone anymore. At that moment, Jun Seok arrives and finds So-yin on the floor, holding the small lifeless body of the girl in her arms. Weeks later, after everything that happened, So-Yin returns to the psychiatric hospital where her father is still being treated. This time, she is not just there to pay his medical bills, she is there to see him. For the first time in years, she steps into the elevator, facing her fear of confined spaces. After their conversation, she leaves the hospital and tells Jun Seok proudly that she finally overcame her fear. He smiles and starts the car, but before he can drive away, they both hear a soft meow coming from beneath the vehicle. So-Yin bends down to look and finds a small cat staring at her with the same sad eyes as Baidan. She smiles warmly and decides to adopt it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.